changed everything. The kitchen smelled like comfort and routine, slow-simmered meat, herbs warming the air, and the quiet hum of a familiar evening. It was the kind of night I had trusted for years. Predictable, safe, ours. My husband, Marcus, stood at the stove with his back to me, stirring carefully, just like he always did when he cooked something special. The navy apron I'd bought him years ago hung loosely around his waist, and he hummed an old soul song under his breath. Anyone watching would have seen a devoted husband, a man grounded in his home. I sat at the kitchen island flipping pages of a design magazine, though my eyes weren't really reading. My mind drifted lazily until a faint glow cut through the warm yellow light. Marcus's phone lit up on the marble counter. No sound, no vibration, just light. 4 words appeared on the lock screen. "Boss, I miss you." The world didn't explode. I didn't scream. I didn't drop anything. Something worse happened. Everything inside me went cold. I recognized the name instantly. She was the new intern Marcus had mentioned months ago, bright, ambitious, eager to learn. He'd spoken about her casually, almost proudly, the way mentors talk about promising students. I had never questioned it. Why would I? My heart didn't race. It didn't ache either. That pain had already burned itself out days earlier, when I'd noticed the unexplained transfers in our bank account, when I'd told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Now there was clarity. Marcus turned around with a smile, asking me to taste the sauce. His face looked the same, handsome, relaxed, familiar. The same man who kissed my forehead every morning, the same man who promised loyalty on our wedding day. I smiled, and that was the moment I decided not to confront him. I needed truth, not excuses, not lies wrapped in charm. When Marcus turned back to the stove, I reached for his phone. My hands were steady. The passcode was our anniversary, 6 digits I'd typed 1,000 times before. The irony almost made me laugh. The message thread sat at the top of the screen. I didn't open it. Instead, I typed a reply. "Come over. My wife isn't home today." I pressed send. The blue checkmarks appeared almost instantly. I took a screenshot, sent it to myself, then erased every trace of the message from his phone. When I placed it back on the counter, it sat exactly as before, innocent, silent, betraying nothing. Marcus had no idea his life had just split in 2. Dinner was served with care and pride. He talked about work, future promotions, plans we were supposedly building together. I nodded, smiled, even ate a few bites. The food tasted perfect, and somehow like ash. I watched the clock while he talked. 30 minutes, 45 at most. Every tick felt deliberate. When he offered dessert, I declined, said I was tired. He touched my forehead gently, concern painted beautifully across his face. I turned away before he could notice the disgust tightening my jaw. I sat on the couch afterwards, staring at the door, listening, baiting. Part of me hoped she wouldn't come, that I'd imagined everything, that I could still pretend. But the stronger part of me, the part that had survived too much to be naive, wanted the truth to walk straight through that door. At exactly 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Marcus looked up, confused. My heart didn't skip. It steadied. I said, "I'll get it," calmly. As I walked toward the door, every step felt final, heavy, certain. I opened it. A young woman stood there, carefully dressed, holding a small box like an offering. The moment she saw me, the color drained from her face. Her smile vanished. Fear took its place. She hadn't expected me. Behind me, Marcus's footsteps froze, and in that instant, I knew. The game had begun. She thought she was coming to see my husband. Instead, she walked straight into my trap, and what happened next would leave all 3 of us changed forever. An uninvited guest. She stood frozen at the doorway like a child caught stealing. The small box in her hands trembled, its ribbon crooked, as if she'd rushed without thinking. Her eyes darted past me, searching for Marcus, searching for reassurance, for permission, for escape. She found none. Behind me, I heard Marcus's uneven breath. He had come close enough to see her face now, close enough to recognize the mistake he could no longer undo. For a moment, no one spoke. Silence pressed against the walls like rising water. Then I smiled. Not warmly, not cruelly, just controlled. "Connie, right?" I said calmly. "You must be freezing out here. Come in." Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. She hadn't planned for this version of the evening. In her mind, I didn't exist, or at least I was supposed to be absent. Marcus finally found his voice. "Babe? Who is that?" I didn't turn around. I didn't answer him. Instead, I stepped aside and gestured toward the living room. Connie hesitated, then stepped in slowly, like someone entering a courtroom without a lawyer. Her heels clicked softly against the hardwood floor, each step echoing far louder than it should have. Marcus stood rooted in place, eyes wide, face drained of color. I closed the door behind us. The sound of the lock sliding into place felt ceremonial. "Marcus," I said pleasantly, "this is the intern you speak so highly of. She was kind enough to stop by tonight." He swallowed hard. His mouth opened, then closed again. Connie clutched the box tighter. I heard you weren't feeling well," she stammered, her voice thin and shaking. "I just wanted to drop something off." Her excuse fell flat the moment it left her mouth. This building wasn't on the way to anywhere. No one dropped by accidentally. But I nodded, as if her lie deserved respect. "That's thoughtful. Why don't you sit?" I guided her to the armchair opposite the couch and gestured for Marcus to sit beside me. He obeyed automatically, like a man moving under hypnosis. Sweat beaded at his temples despite the cool air. I went to the kitchen. I made noise on purpose, cups clinking, cabinets opening, so they knew I hadn't disappeared. I wanted them to sit there, alone with their thoughts, replaying every bad decision that led to this moment. When I returned, I carried a tray. I placed a disposable plastic cup filled with tap water in front of Connie. For Marcus and me, I set down fine porcelain teacups with gold trim. The contrast was unmistakable. Connie noticed. Her cheeks flushed deep red, and she stared at the cup like it had insulted her out loud. She said nothing. I sat down and looped my arm through Marcus's. His body went rigid. I rested my head lightly against his shoulder and smiled at her. "So, Connie, how's the internship going? My husband a good mentor?" Her fingers tightened around the cup. "Yes," she whispered. "He's very supportive." Marcus stared straight ahead. I nodded thoughtfully. "That's good. Support matters, especially for young women starting out." I shifted closer to Marcus and squeezed his arm gently. My nails pressed just enough for him to feel it. "Marcus takes his responsibilities seriously, at work and at home." Connie's eyes flicked between us, confusion mixing with humiliation. Whatever fantasy she'd built was cracking fast. Then I changed the subject. I started talking about our future. Our upcoming vacation, the house we were planning to buy, the family we'd discussed starting next year. Every word was a quiet reminder, you are temporary. Connie's breathing grew shallow, her shoulders sagged. The cupcake box sat untouched on the table like a forgotten apology. Finally, I turned to her with a gentle smile. "You're young and beautiful, plenty of men out there for you. Married ones are complicated." She dropped her gaze. Her hands shook. Marcus flinched beside me. Then I reached into my pocket and placed my phone on the table. The room went still. I unlocked the screen and sighed softly. It's funny how bold people have become, sending messages to married men like there are no consequences. Connie's head snapped up. Her eyes met mine. And in that moment, she knew.
She had walked into my home thinking she was wanted, but now she realized she had been summoned, and the truth I was about to reveal would shatter her completely.
The trap closed. The moment our eyes met, I saw it. Recognition. Not confusion, not doubt. Pure, unmistakable fear. Connie's fingers tightened around the cheap plastic cup until it bent slightly under the pressure. Her lips parted, but again, no words came. She already knew what was on my phone. She just hadn't expected to see it reflected so clearly in my face. Marcus finally turned toward me. "What are you talking about?" he asked, forcing a laugh that cracked halfway through. "You're imagining things." I tilted my head and smiled at him. "Am I?" I unlocked my phone and let the screen glow softly between us. I didn't shove it in their faces. I didn't need to. The tension alone was enough. I continued calmly. I trust my husband, or at least I used to. That's why I never imagined someone would feel comfortable enough to tell him they miss him. Connie inhaled sharply. Marcus's hand twitched on his knee. I turned to her. "Tell me, Connie, do interns usually miss their supervisors this much?" Her eyes dropped to the floor. I didn't mean it like that," she whispered. "It was just friendly." I nodded slowly. "Friendly." I leaned back against the couch and crossed my legs. "Funny. Because friendly messages don't usually lead to late-night visits when the wife is supposedly not home." Marcus bolted upright. "What does that mean?" I looked at him for a long second. Then I said it. I replied to the message. Silence slammed into the room. Connie's breath hitched violently. Her face drained of color so fast it was almost frightening. She understood now. Every step, every word, every smile from the moment she arrived had been calculated. Marcus stared at me, eyes wide. "You what?" I replied, I repeated evenly, "from your phone, and I invited her." His mouth opened, then closed. No sound emerged. Connie suddenly stood up, panic flooding her movements. "I should go. I didn't realize. This was a mistake. If you walk out that door," I said calmly, not raising my voice, "everyone at your company will receive screenshots of your messages, including your parents." She froze. Slowly, she sank back into the chair. I stood up and walked toward her. Each step was deliberate, measured. When I stopped in front of her, she looked up at me like a child facing judgment. "I gave you a chance," I said quietly, "to leave before you embarrassed yourself." Tears pooled in her eyes. "I didn't know he was serious about his marriage," she whispered. I laughed softly. "Of course you did. You just didn't care." I turned back to Marcus. "And you," I said coldly, "sat here letting a young woman destroy her own future for your ego." He stood abruptly. "This isn't fair. You're twisting things." I picked up the small cupcake box and opened it. Inside was a single decorated pastry, untouched. I set it on the table between us. "This," I said, "is what you came with." Then I placed my phone beside it and slid it forward. "And this," I added, "is what you're leaving with." Connie glanced at the screen. Her knees buckled slightly as she read. She started crying then, not quiet tears, but broken sobs she couldn't control. Her shoulders shook violently. "I'm sorry," she choked. "I didn't think it would go this far." I straightened. "It always does." I turned toward the door and opened it. Cool hallway air rushed in. "You should go," I said calmly, "before this becomes unforgettable in ways you won't recover from." She didn't argue. She grabbed her bag, left the cupcake behind, and fled, almost tripping as she reached the hallway. I watched her disappear into the elevator without a word. Then I closed the door. The apartment felt different now.
heavier. I turned slowly. Marcus was still standing in the middle of the living room, trembling, eyes darting between the shattered illusion and the woman who had dismantled it. I picked up his phone from the table, and without hesitation, I smashed it against the glass surface. The screen exploded into cracks. "Explain," I said coldly. He dropped to his knees. I thought exposing the truth would be the hardest part, but the moment he fell apart, I realized the real reckoning was only beginning.
The cost of betrayal. Marcus's knees hit the floor with a dull thud that echoed through the room. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't cinematic, it was just small, pathetic. The kind of sound a life makes when it collapses quietly. "I can explain," he said again, his voice cracking this time. I looked down at him, really looked. The man I'd built a future with now knelt among the ruins of his own making. His shoulders sagged, his hands shook, his eyes searched my face, desperate for mercy he hadn't earned. I felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just clarity. "Stand up," I said. He didn't move. "Stand up." Slowly, he obeyed, wiping his face with the back of his hand. His pride had evaporated completely. This wasn't the confident man who walked into boardrooms and commanded respect. This was someone exposed. "Talk," I said, folding my arms. He swallowed. "It started as nothing. Messages, compliments. She admired me. It felt good." I nodded. "It always does." "I never planned to meet her," he rushed. "It just happened." "Lies don't happen, Marcus," I replied calmly. "They're choices." He flinched. "I was lonely," he whispered. That did it. A short laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Not loud, not cruel, just disbelief. "Lonely?" I repeated. "In the home I built, with the woman who supported you through every failure and celebrated every win?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "There it is," I said softly. The silence. I walked past him and picked up my coat from the chair. The movement startled him. "Where are you going?" he asked quickly. "Out," I said. "You don't get to ask questions tonight." Panic surged across his face. "Please don't leave like this." I turned to him. "Like what?" "Like it's over." I studied him for a long moment. "Marcus," I said evenly, "it was over the moment you typed that first reply." He reached for me, then stopped himself, his hand hovering uselessly in the air. "What do you want me to do?" he asked desperately. I thought about it. "I want honesty, but not tonight." I stepped closer. "Tonight, I want you to sit here and understand what it feels like to lose control." I walked toward the door. Behind him, his voice cracked completely. "I love you." I paused. Then I said the words I'd never imagined speaking. "You loved what I gave you, not me." I left. The elevator ride down felt surreal, too quiet, too slow. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked composed, almost untouched, but inside, something fundamental had shifted. Outside, the city buzzed like nothing had happened. Cars passed, people laughed, life continued without pause. I sat in my car and stared at my phone. Dozens of messages from Marcus poured in. Apologies, promises, excuses disguised as remorse. I didn't read them. Instead, I opened a different app. Our shared cloud storage. I had access to everything. Bank statements, work emails, old conversations. And there it was. A folder I didn't recognize. I opened it. Screenshots, receipts, messages. Not just Connie. There were others. My chest tightened, not with pain,
but with something sharper, resolute. When I returned home hours later, the apartment was silent. Marcus sat on the couch exactly where I'd left him. He looked up when I entered, hope flickering briefly in his eyes. It died when he saw my face. "I know," I said, before he could speak. He froze. "All of it," I continued. "Every time you thought you were careful." He sank back into the couch, defeated. I placed my phone on the table. "And tomorrow," I added calmly, "we start dealing with the consequences." I thought discovering the betrayal was the end, but the truth hidden in that folder proved something far worse was coming.
The quiet after the storm. Morning arrived without ceremony. No dramatic sunrise, no thunder, just light creeping through the curtains like it always had. Marcus hadn't slept. Neither had I. He sat at the dining table, shoulders slumped, staring at a mug of untouched coffee. His phone, borrowed, temporary, lay face down beside him, silent for the first time in days. When I entered the room, he looked up slowly, eyes red, hope worn thin. I didn't sit. "I spoke to a lawyer this morning," I said calmly. His breath caught. "Already?" "Yes." He nodded faintly, as if he'd expected it. Maybe part of him had been waiting for the final blow, something definitive to replace the endless uncertainty. "I'm not here to scream," I said calmly. "I'm here to end this properly." He stood up, hands braced against the table. "I'll do anything. Counseling, therapy. I'll quit my job. "No," I said gently. "You won't." He looked confused. "Because this isn't about fixing you, it's about freeing me." The words settled between us like dust after a collapse. I handed him a folder. Inside were printed screenshots, timelines, names, dates, everything from the cloud account, organized, labeled, undeniable. "You don't get to rewrite this," I said, "and I won't protect you from it." His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. Each one stripped another layer of denial away. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. I took a breath. "The company will know," I said. "Not today, but soon. I won't embellish. I won't threaten. I'll just tell the truth." He closed his eyes. "As for us, I'll be moving out. The lawyer will handle the rest." "You're really leaving?" he whispered. I nodded. For the first time, he didn't argue. He just looked empty. I packed only what I needed: clothes, personal items, the things that still felt like mine. As I zipped the final bag, I paused, glancing around the bedroom we once shared. It felt smaller now. Before I left, Marcus spoke one last time. "I never thought you'd be this strong," he said. I turned to face him. I wasn't. I became this way because I had to. I walked out without looking back. Weeks passed. Silence replaced chaos. My phone stopped buzzing. My thoughts slowed. I found an apartment filled with light and unfamiliar quiet, the kind of quiet that heals instead of hurts. One afternoon, I received a message from an unknown number. It was Connie. She apologized, not defensively, not desperately, just honestly. She said she'd left the company, that the shame had been unbearable, but necessary. She didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't reply. Some chapters don't need closure. Months later, I heard about Marcus through mutual acquaintances. He'd been suspended pending investigation. His reputation, once polished, now carried whispers. I felt no satisfaction, just distance and peace. One evening, as I unpacked the last box in my new home, I found something unexpected tucked between old papers. A photo. Marcus and me, smiling, unaware. I studied it for a long moment. Then I folded it carefully and let it go. Because the woman in that picture didn't know her worth yet. But I do now.
and I will never forget how quietly power can change hands when someone finally refuses to be fooled. They thought betrayal would break me, but it became the moment I chose me, and that choice changed everything.